I believe that we are live. I always. This. I gotta grab this. Hey, everybody. Yeah, we are live. Gonna start in just a moment. Welcome. Welcome to Common Ground. Delighted to be here with you. Got a few of you on IC. Welcome. Hi, Clara, Carl, Grace. Welcome. Hey, everybody. Yeah, we are live. Going to start in just a moment. Welcome. Welcome to Common Ground. That's my own voice playing back at me. Okay, guys, we're going to start in just a second. Welcome, everybody. Live once again. Yeah, I see some of you liking the page. Do me a favor, if you guys want to increase how many people see this, hit the little share button and share it on your front page of your, I think it's your timeline. That will help us get to more people. Glad you all are here. Let's go ahead and let's get started. Excited to kick off tonight's show. It's a very important topic, near and dear to my heart. So let me get us going. Yeah, I think there's a few more people coming on, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. You are on Common Ground, the place where we seek to kill fear and we seek to transform division into understanding. As I speak, fear and bigotry threaten to tear our nation apart. And on this show, we seek to strike a blow against that fear, the fear that divides us all, by listening to one another as we discuss the most difficult topics with respect, civility, and a mind open to a differing opinion. I'm happy to tell you that we found over and over and over again that when we can discuss our opinions freely, we can form an alliance of reason with our fellow citizens, even when we may not agree. We discover we are not all that different, and it's not so hard to reach common ground. I'm your host, John Lombardo. I'm really excited to be back with you tonight. Our topic for tonight's discussion is misinformation. Are we using it to destroy our society while our enemies cheer us on? The answer is yes. We live in two different worlds these days. We describe to news based not on data, but on whether or not that news supports the version of the world we prefer. We don't want the truth. We want to have our viewpoints affirmed. And we don't read the news anymore. We read comment threads of people arguing about the news, or whatever version of the news affirms the reality in which they live. So it isn't the facts we're interested in anymore. It's the ringside seat to the big show, the cage match that happens in the comments section. And foreign powers that want to destroy our democracy, they are loving every minute of it. That's the subject for tonight's show. I'm going to bring on now my co-host, the inimitable Eric Rodriguez. Eric, good to have you with us, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Eric, do me a favor. Just, I know most people that watch the show know this, but tell everybody your background. I just want people to know what you do and what your background is.
My background. Well, I, I, I currently I work at a nonprofit organization. I work supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I Part of my job there is to work to advocate for people with disabilities, and we do some of that on a very local, small scale. We do some of that at a legislative scale, both state and federal. Um, I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I was a school counselor before this current job. I also have a bachelor's degree from Berkeley in religious studies. And I don't know, somehow I've been friends with you for uh, most of my life. And for better or worse, 30 some kind of 38 years or something. I don't know.
Well, so having heard all that, I just want to say, ooh, look who knows so much, Mr. Big Shot. Uh, that's how I want to get us into this conversation this evening. Because what we're talking about tonight, when Carl said you were at Ill Repute Halloween Live, and I think that's probably the most important.
I've
Uh, yeah,
Carl.
absolutely.
That's true. Been an ill repute fan for also about 38 years. So
Okay, cool. Carl, we're glad you're here, my friend. Awesome. So what we are making fun. I was making fun of Eric for citing those credentials because it's kind of ties into what our theme is tonight about this misinformation that's out there. The way I see it, we are absolutely destroying our country by just bombarding one another with rage, judgment, and hatred over things that aren't even true. And more importantly, this has been quite carefully orchestrated by people who really do mean to harm our country. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a fact that can be testified. That can be. You can. All you got to do is look it up and see what our intelligence agencies have told us. So, I want to kick us off, Eric, by talking a little bit about this. Based on so I'm gonna structure tonight's conversation around something that I want to say. I did not read this book, but I heard an interview with two political scientists, one from Yale, one from Berkeley, who've written a book called "Let Them Eat Tweets," and it's a book about how basically about how parties get people to vote against their own interests. Jacob Hacker is a Yale political scientist. Paul Pearson's a Berkeley political scientist. I listened to them in a couple of interviews. So I want to say I didn't read the book. I wish I had, but I like them as a setup for this conversation. And then, Eric, I want to ask you to chime in. And remember, guys, Common Ground is an interactive show. You can absolutely type your comments in, your questions in. You can disagree with me, and I will read your disagreeing opinions. This is about having a conversation. This isn't about you listening to us just talk at you. You could even call in if you're interested in calling in. Just put it in the comment line, and I'll give you the phone number. So, what these guys talked about was really, really interesting. They talk about something called plutocratic populism, and it's very when it comes to dishonesty in the way we communicate these days, it is very tempting and very easy to blame it on Donald Trump. This guy is something else, right? However, this has been going on for a long time. He is, actually Donald Trump is the result of something that's been fomented in our society for decades. And they call it plutocratic populism. These are mostly Republican policies. I don't want to get partisan on this, but it's just true because Republicans have consistently been able to win elections on platforms that are not popular. you know, tax tax breaks for rich people, repealing the healthcare. These are not popular policies. Citizens United. These aren't popular policies, and yet Republicans have been able to get elected on these platforms by introducing something that these political scientists call divisive appeals to identity. Those are race, gun ownership, fundamentalist Christian ideals, essentially portrayed as being under assault by either cultural or actual foreign invaders. So that's what these guys have to say about that. Do you have thoughts about that, Eric?
Well, my one thought right off the bat is I read a very long study, I don't know, a couple months ago about politics and the way people vote, and I'm not going to be able to parrot back the statistics exactly, but I'll just say this: that the overwhelming evidence statistically is that people do not vote in their own self-interest; they vote according to identity. And so, one of the things that we hear on sort of both political ends of the spectrum is people get a little bit upset that people are going into identity politics. And really, what the statistics show and the studies about the way people vote show is that that's what everyone's doing. I mean, not everybody, but that we vote according to how we see ourselves as opposed to our self-interest. So the things that how what I believe about myself, who I want to portray is what team I want to play for is far more important than the issues at hand. And and so that seems to be statistically it seems to be proven that that's the way people are voting. But it is quite so. I think that is an explanation for why some of these areas of discussion uh, move the needle far more than the actual policies that a candidate or a party is pushing, whether those policies are are going to benefit me. If they're pushing the right
Sure.
concepts, then those that's who I'm going to vote for.
I'm going to show you guys some examples of this. This was an actual strategy. It began with Newt Gingrich, actually. Newt Gingrich, he was the first guy to sort of really get rough in modern politics, anyway, aligning himself with people like Rush Limbaugh, who was at the time very outspoken, far right wing, considered far right wing, and here's a major player in American politics aligning himself with those folks. I'm going to show you guys something.
Is Rush no longer considered far right?
No, he's center of he's middle of the road now, baby. But I want to show you guys something. I'm going to bring up my screen here and share something with you all that I found quite interesting. So this is something that
Desktop.
What?
Messy desktop.
Messy. Hey, come on, take it easy, will you? So this is something that came up. This is Citizens United. This is what Citizens United is, okay? It's a conservative nonprofit group. They challenged campaign finance rules after the FTC stopped it from promoting and airing a film criticizing candidate Hillary Clinton. And the rationale for the ruling, it allows wealthy donors and corporations and special interest groups to have sort of an unlimited influence financially. It essentially makes it so that they can donate as much money as they want to a candidate. And the reason that the Supreme Court decided in favor of this was because of First Amendment rights. Now I want to show you something else going on. That was in 2010 when the Supreme Court decided in favor of Citizens United. And then I want to show you this. This is something that Lindsey Graham said in 2012 at the Republican convention. He said, the demographic race we are losing badly. We're not generating enough angry white guys to stay in business for the long term. So here's a guy speaking out loud about these identity politics and about what they have to do to keep the power and stay in business. That to me, that was spectacular to me to find that. When I heard that he had said this, I had to go look it up for myself. It's horrifying.
Steve,
but
Steve Bannon, talked a lot about race and how those identity politics were absolutely necessary for their campaign, and said also out loud, just said, if they're calling you a racist, we're winning.
Right.
And so it definitely was part of Steve Bannon. A big part of the campaign in 2016 is no longer with the Trump administration, but was a huge part of sort of designing some of the laws and some of the identity politics where he was behind that.
What bothers me is that it works so well. That kind of stuff, and some of you out there will refute me on this, and I hope I say this correctly, and please give me examples to show me how I'm missing it. I don't see that working as well for people that are far left. Like, Elizabeth Warren tried this. I mean, I feel like I remember the moment Elizabeth Warren fell out of the running for presidency. She was talking to a group of college students, and there were some trans people in the audience. And of course, the trans community has been horribly discriminated against. And obviously, part of our evolution toward a more adult and compassionate society is to accept these people, right? And to make them, to give them their place. But they're a very small slice of our demographic. She said, well, I promise you, if I get elected, I will have a transgender college student as my Secretary of Education. I mean, the pandering was ridiculous. That's a ridiculous idea. How is that person? That's the qualification you're going to ask, and it didn't work. I think that the party turned on her with the. She pandered really hard to the left. I think it works better on people who have a conservative mindset somehow. Although, because I remember when Bush got in. I don't remember if it was it was in 2000. It was in 2004 when Bush was running for re-election, and I remember seeing a commercial. One of their big campaign platforms was, "We don't want to. We're in the middle of this war with Iraq. We all know how that turned out, and we're in the middle of this war, and we do not want to change horses midstream." That was one of the big campaign platforms. And so I saw a commercial about this concern with actual wolves running through a forest. I remember actually laughing out loud, going, does this work on people? To try to generate fear. I mean, this is a political commercial showing wolves running through a forest as if someone's coming to get you if you change seats, if you change course, electing a different president. So this type of fear-based politics, it's engendered. It's been happening for a long time, but it's gotten incredibly bad. Pete said, "What about AOC and the squad?" So to Pete's example. Now I'm going to give an example, Pete, and you feel free to throw one out.
Yeah,
Throw one out as well. AOC did say that the world was going to end in like 12 years if we don't do something about climate change, which is a ridiculous thing to say. It's not true. I'm not convinced she was being literally. I think that might have been taken a little bit out of context. But to your point, Pete, I I think that she got called on the table by a lot of people for saying that, but on both the left and the right. And I want to read. Denise said, and Eric, maybe you could answer this question. Denise said, "How do I refute misinformation on Facebook? Most of my friends get horribly offended when I politely attempt to fact check by posting a factual link and mention, hey, you might want to consider a different perspective." What do you think about that, Eric?
well, this is incredibly challenging. People. I mean, this is one of the things that we've been talking about so much here. Is we had a whole show about misinformation before, and you and I said really the biggest issue that we're facing right now is misinformation. And there's a whole bunch of topics. Whether we're talking about demonstrations and the response to the demonstration, whether we're talking about masks and drugs, and whether we're talking about whatever. There's a whole bunch of issues that are up right now and have been up, and the misinformation is out of control. And I hear people on the street saying things that I know are complete nonsense, and social media is at the heart of this.
It
And
is.
and I don't know exactly how to do that. But what I would say is that I recently talked in person with a friend of mine who posted something and suggested something about well, I'm not going to reveal about, because I don't want to pull anyone's covers. But let me just say this: there was a public post and a public response, and I asked my friend, wouldn't it have been better to do that privately, to either call, text the person, or to DM, private message
Right.
the person, so that and start out with saying, the last thing I want to do is offend you or to embarrass you in any way, but I believe this is incorrect.
But maybe that's not the last thing they wanted to do. I think that we have a new normal of harsh cruelty that's just acceptable and even in some circles desirable.
I agree with you, John. But what I'm saying, Denise was asking sort of how do I respond, and I'm saying
Thank
that I
you.
think that if you're going to challenge somebody, it's better done one on one rather than publicly. And you can on your page you can post whatever facts you want to post. But if you want to challenge somebody, it's probably best done privately. That's how I would do it because I would want the person to know that I was challenging their facts and not them.
So in response to what Pete had said about the squad and AOC, Sharman said, "I don't think AOC's hyperbole is what this nation should be worried about right now." But why not? I got to challenge you on that, Sharman. Why should we be worried about Trump's hyperbole and not AOC's?
John,
I don't like, huh?
well, I just wanted to get this out there so that maybe Pete might, you know, saying a couple people's name doesn't give me any way for me to address. I've heard AOC talk many times, and sometimes I think she sounds a little bit. I've heard her say a million, like bright things. So
Yeah.
without without a specific example, I don't have anywhere to go with that. Like just to say, you know,
So Pete, Eric is asking for a specific example what you're referring to, but I want to touch on what was said about we. I really think that it's problematic in political discourse. I'm going to call it out from a friend of mine because this pisses me off when people do this with things that I want to discuss. When you downplay it, say, "Well, I don't think we need to be worried about that right now." Yeah, we do. It's all the same. Bullshit is bullshit. If AOC is speaking hyperbole, I don't give a crap if she's got a D or an R behind her name. Stop the bullshit. In the same way I feel about Trump, which good luck with that. But let's all stop the bullshit and let's have intelligent conversations. I really feel passionately about that. I want to keep my own side of the street clean. And make sure that I look, if I belong to any group or any party or anything, which I try not to do, but if I do, I'm going to make damn sure I'm going to hold them to a higher standard than I do anybody else, including myself. I think that's a responsible way to behave. And I think that if we all were doing that, we wouldn't have some of the problems we have.
John, I completely agree with what you're saying, and I want to add something. If somebody's hype, they're as I said, without an example, I can't speak to something without an example. However, if somebody is hyperbolic about something that some issue that it isn't ending up. I mean, I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about right now is a topic you and I have been recently talking about uh, is misinformation that is actually costing people their lives.
Oh yeah,
So
we're gonna get there too. Yeah.
hyperbolic about something like um, admission restrictions. That if you overshoot that, you might make cleaner air. That is a that I yes, they're both. It's there's hyperbole on both sides, but one is not. They're not comparable. If I just want to say that like those aren't necessarily you have to have a specific example in order to talk about whether or not those are apples and apples.
Sharman said, and that is why the high road is losing. I think that's true. I think that is a true statement. But for now, it may be losing. But I believe that look, if you got principles, you stick to them and trust that what is best is what is going to ultimately come forward to win. Carol said, write your opinion. Just don't get into a one-on-one ongoing argument. Let the person know why you disagree, then move on. Carol, well said, and absolutely agree with you on that. Lewis said, couldn't agree more. Stop the bullshit on both sides. Guys, this is Common Ground. Eric and I are talking tonight about misinformation, how it's hurting us out there. We're going to get into some pretty deep stuff right now, but please feel free to comment. I'm watching the thread. We'd love to have you to your opinions and your questions and your challenges to what we're saying. We certainly know that we aren't the final word on all these things. I want to go back to how these campaigns of misinformation and sort of what is indecent began. John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, Republican, said on this about Republicans stoking fear and playing identity politics. He said, "We fed the beast that ultimately ate us." That's what Boehner said. But at the same time, McConnell said 2019 was the best year ever for conservatives. I'm sorry, 2018. So, what do you think, Eric? Is this coming back to? And I'm gonna put my picture on pause and go get myself some fluid so I don't have another coughing fit tonight while you answer this question. But is this thing turning on Republicans and eating them, or is it serving them? What do you think?
Well, I think that what we have is a situation where the Republican Party is having to find a little bit of a different identity. There is a segment of people who consider themselves Republicans who are huge Trump supporters, and there's a huge segment of conservative people who are more old school Republicans, and a lot of these tactics and a lot of these the roads that Trump is going down don't really fit into an old school conservative model, an old school Republican model, and there is a little bit of a battle for what that party is gonna look like. I mean that's always the case, right? You start feeding. If your tactics, and we know in 2016, division was a huge strategic part of the campaign, and it still is. And in fact, I think one of the reasons why Trump is not doing as well now as he was in 2016 is because mostly what's left of his campaigning is division and relying on some of these conspiracy theories and some of these more outlying groups instead of addressing some of the populist issues that he was there's a huge group of people that he's and issues that he's leaving out with the populism that he and Bernie were both on in 2016, and they were the ones, despite the fact that the DNC somehow decided to give delegate votes to Hillary that she didn't earn. Bernie was outdrawing everybody, and he and Trump were using the same sort of emotional populist style and approach. Now, some of their policies obviously were very different, but the style of campaign that they were running and the populist kind of appeal were identical.
So let's talk about it. Okay, so Pete, by the way, Pete has an AOC example, so let's get into this. Guys, this is Common Ground. We're talking about misinformation. Pete said, AOC, an example that rattled the right was when AOC alluded to Nazi Germany while describing the way Trump detained migrant families on the border. The fact that concentration camps are now an institutionalized practice in the land of the free is extraordinarily disturbing, she said during a live stream. The biggest problem but he said, but let's not go this way. The biggest problem with both sides of the aisle positioning for power, the establishment is the real problem with government. They want power and don't care about people. So do you want to respond to that, or Eric, or do you want to move on? Shall we move on? Did I lose you? Eric froze up on me. Okay, so I will keep things going while we wait for Eric to return to us. I want to share something with all of you. We're going to get back on this misinformation topic. Our intelligence agency. So I don't know if you've seen the Senate Committee on Intelligence report on Russia, but I'm going to share my screen with you all again and show it to you. I'm going to show you my messy desktop again. And I want to show you guys where is this? This is from the Senate Committee Intelligence findings. The committee found that the IRA, and IRA does not stand for, it's not the Irish Republican Army guys. That is the Internet Research Association. They found that the Russians sought to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election by harming Hillary Clinton's chances of success in supporting Donald Trump at the direction of the Kremlin. And they also found that the IRA's information warfare campaign was broad in scope, entailed objectives beyond the results of the 2016 presidential election. And then the other part of this, very important to know, is the committee found that the IRA co-opted unwitting Americans to engage in offline activities in furtherance of their objectives as well as online. I want to talk about that with our viewers. I want to talk to you guys about us being unwitting Americans. This is what is so important to me about tonight's show. I really feel that we are, one of my points by reading this information that I've been able to study and read, I absolutely believe that we are playing into the hands of our enemies with our behavior on social media sites. Listen to some of this, guys. Facebook's data. I'm going to once again going to go back to the screen share, ladies and gentlemen, and going to share this and show you where is it. Here's the Facebook report. This is the Facebook transparency report for how many fake accounts they took action on between January of 2019 and January through March of 2020. This is about 8 billion fake accounts, many of them Russian and Chinese bots spreading misinformation. Knowing this, why anybody would ever share anything that they found on Facebook again, it's baffling to me, because we are absolutely associating in our demise and helping our enemies destroy our society. I'm going to go now. I want to go to a couple of these comments. So Lewis said, why do either of you or both of you think that social media platforms have gone astray from what they used to be? Just a place to share and reconnect with old friends, and that has turned into a fact-checking platform. That's such a great way to put it. Where does this disinformation come from, and why has that become the place for politics? So Lewis, I think we could talk about that for quite a while. Here's what I believe. I believe there's always been a lot of fear and anger and a lot of disassociated, disenfranchised people in our society who didn't feel listened to, didn't feel respected, and now they've got a bully pulpit. I think Facebook has become a platform for that. But I also absolutely believe that these foreign agencies have fomented this behavior in us by getting the ball rolling. I'm going to share with you guys. I want to make sure Eric isn't back before I get into some of the stuff. But I want you guys to see some of the things. I mean, I've been doing this every week, but I want you to see what I've found out there. It's absolutely incredible. So let's go back to my screen, and let me just show you some of this stuff. Let's get into this thing. And please, feel free to comment on this, but you probably saw this video. This video absolutely went viral this week. Dr. Stella Emanuel. I don't want to disparage people on this show. I don't want to decry this woman. If you saw this and you're familiar with this story, you may know a couple of things. This came out. This is a group of doctors this was on Breitbart, which is a very far right-leaning news resource. These doctors were talking about some of their experiences in working in the COVID-19 field. And this woman said some things that many people, myself included, consider to be dangerous. Look, if you're a doctor and she said, I've treated 350 people with coronavirus, and she had used hydrochloroquine, okay? And I don't know if you guys know how controversial hydrochloroquine has been, but the idea is that some people have said that it's very good it's a malaria medicine. Some people have said it's very helpful. And then a lot of studies have been done stating that it's not safe. This woman came out, and she was like the face of this group of people. There were many other doctors in there, and they didn't all say the same thing. But she came forth and said that this is a cure for COVID-19. Now, she didn't say, I've treated 350 people and there are really positive signs and we're not looking at this enough. No. She said it's a cure. She made fun of double-blind studies. Guys, I'm not a scientist, but I happen to know that double-blind studies are imperative to any research operation, any research project, so that you can establish controls and all those kinds of things. So very questionable stuff. And people, this was getting pulled down off the internet. People were accusing social media pages of trying to hide this information. This is just ignorance. Guys, the reason social media sites were pulling this video down is because it's potentially dangerous. It is potentially dangerous to stand up on a stage and say, I know of a cure for a disease when that is not scientifically validated. It's dangerous information. Even the president's son got his Twitter account suspended, I believe. The president was tweeting this, okay? I'm going to share something with you that comes from my own personal experience. As some of you may or may not know, I do live events. That's what I do for a living, and now I do them virtually. Last night, I had the pleasure of doing an event for the American Lung Association. This man, Albert Rizzo, please look Albert Rizzo up. He's the chief medical officer for the American Lung Association, and I could get in trouble for sharing this. I don't have permissions, but he didn't say anything too crazy here. But this was when somebody asked him about hydrochloroquine. Now, this is the chief medical officer of the American Lung Association. Does he have nefarious links to money and things like that? Maybe. I don't know. But he is a celebrated professional in the pulmonary world. This is what he had to say about hydroxychloroquine. So
should not
listen
be
up.
used to prevent or treat COVID-19. Studies are pretty much clear about that. The few anecdotal studies that are being mentioned by the White House were just that. They were early on. They were not clinical trials that have shown more definitive evidence that it's not a drug to be used or promoted.
So that is...
Dr. Fauci said that today on the news as well. So I'm in good company.
So Dr. Fauci's...
Just had another question come in.
Okay,
should
so...
we also be worried about our pets?
I should not be playing that anymore. Okay, so guys, I share that with you because I just want to give you a perspective on what is sane and rational and responsible, in my opinion, of course, and then what is hyperbolic. It should be enough for us. We should have the sense we have somehow disregarded our own sensibilities around these things. And I get it. Look, people are frightened about what this means for us. Keeping our society shut down is a huge financial strain on so many people. It's dangerous in that way. People are sick and tired of not knowing what to do. There is so much misinformation coming down to us. I don't know what to do. I mean, we are all concerned. We're all kind of lost. But that doesn't mean we abandon reason. Why do we all hop on a story I asked several of my friends, who is this person? They didn't even know who she was before they were saying things like, everybody needs to see this. So I want to read what Carol said. She said, I found many excellent posts on social media, along with as many silly ones. I got to hear Obama's wonderful eulogy today. I don't friend a lot of people and don't believe a lot of what I see. Nonetheless, it is useful to know what people are hearing and what is influencing them. I'm glad I know that these nutcases are out there. The problem is when people in power send these things out. The White House is the problem, not just social media. Well, certainly the sharing of those messages from the White House is hugely problematic. Dr. Burke said the same thing just yesterday about hydrochloroquine. It's not proven through the proper study. That it is good to know. Well, actually, Lewis, Dr. Burks and Dr. Fauci said that it kind of is proven, that it's not really a good thing to use, that it has very mixed results and it has some dangers for people who have cardiovascular issues. But look, he said that Pete says, now you're getting to the crux of the matter. The question is, do the fact checkers lean too much to the left? The right is arguing this is not sane, rational, and responsible, but rather censorship. Yeah, but Pete, based on what? That's what I would want to know. I'm totally open that these folks are people like Fauci and Birx and the guy I just showed you, that all of them, that there's a conspiracy among all of our doctors to be on the side of censorship. But what is it based upon? Okay, that's what I want to know. My belief that what that chief medical officer said is based upon his credentials and the things that I can find in his record based on his studies. I mean, when I looked, I don't want to discredit anybody, but that woman in that video, look her up. She's got some pretty crazy stuff in her past. I don't know if she's the kind of person you'd want to trust to say, I have found the cure for COVID-19. And we should be very suspicious of anybody who says, I have found the cure for COVID-19. Why are we more suspicious of our entire medical industry than of this one person who says, I've found a cure? You have to ask yourself that question rationally, don't you? Am I wrong about that? I mean, I believe you do have to ask yourself that question, and you'd better have a damn good answer. You are now setting a standard as to who determines what should be seen. That's what Pete said. Yeah. Look, if somebody gets on social media and says, I'm holding a rally tonight in your town, and I'm going to be burning crosses and lynching people of color, I think that person should be cut off and not be allowed to speak on the internet if it's a danger to people. And it is a danger, guys. A horrible thing happened this week. Herman Cain died. He became positive for COVID-19 10 days after he attended an event where he was celebrating that there would be no masks at the event, that the people had had enough. So this is actually dangerous to let this misinformation go out. And if Herman Cain passed away, guys, how many other people that went to that rally are in danger? This misinformation is provably, demonstrably dangerous. Tell me I'm wrong. Show me how I'm wrong. I'm completely open to hear it. Sorry, guys. I don't want to get too passionate about all this stuff. And, while we're on that subject, when it comes to Trump, I swear I'm only going to spend 45 seconds on this, but I draw a line on the sand with that guy. Look, this isn't politics with him. We can talk about the best way to manage immigration into this country. We can talk about trickle-down economics. We can talk about those kinds of things. We can talk about securing our borders. Those are policy issues that we can discuss, and conservatives are sometimes going to have better ideas than liberals. That's just the way it is. It's the truth. But what do we have to talk about when once again this man is standing on a stage and lying to all of us this week? What are we supposed to do? He's standing on a stage. We saw him lie about tests being available. I'll never forget back in May seeing him on a show saying that the Obama administration left the cupboards bare. It was their fault, right? The White House itself, go look it up. The White House itself refuted that, said that's actually not true. We had well-stocked shelves with the exception of a few things that we needed. These are dangerous lies to be telling. How do we deal with these things with this guy? I don't want to get too far into that, but I'll say this one last thing. A lot of people believe that it's the left that want to take Trump down. Sorry, not true. Because you can talk about people who are liberals. You can talk about people who are pissed off that Hillary Clinton didn't win. You can talk about all those people. But what about Tillerson, Bolton, Kelly, Mattis? These are people who joined his team. They believed in his vision. What do they say about him now? These are people that know him much better than you or I do. These are people that worked closely with him on his vision and approach, and they're gone now. What do they say about him? Why do we discount them? They're heads of some of the biggest companies in our country, some of the most successful people in our country, 4-star generals. Why don't we listen to them? Why don't we listen to them? I'm done with Trump. That's enough, guys. All right. What do we got here? What have we got here? I'm going to go back to, guys, I'm going to do something here. This is new. Let me make sure let's see if, no, I don't have Eric. Oh, wait, is Eric back? Hold on a second. He's back. Ladies and gentlemen, he's back and better than ever.
Hey, John.
Patricia said I sat on a Lincoln Project town hall, mostly Republicans. Yes, Eric, we're glad you're back, my friend.
Clearly, The D.
The what? Uh-oh, did you freeze again? Uh-oh, I think he might have frozen again. Did we lose Eric again? Let me go check. I don't feel confident. Yes, he's frozen. Rats. Eric, you're frozen again. Well, Eric, unfortunately, you're going to miss my next segment. I've been just a little too heavy here, guys. So I'm going to go to my next segment called You Might Be a Conspiracy Theorist If. Okay, these are 10 signs that you are a conspiracy theorist. I have to give my brother credit for this. He wrote this bit for me. I'm excited to share it with all of you. You might be a conspiracy theorist if you believe Bill Gates is developing vaccines with microchips, not to take over humanity, but to try to get people to finally use Bing. You might be a conspiracy theorist if you learn with disgust from your dark web sources that the Clintons have been eating babies on Meatless Monday. Oh, unforgivable. You might be a conspiracy theorist if you believe that God wanted to make America great again, so he said, who have we got down there who can eat 3 buckets of KFC and has a gold toilet? You might be a conspiracy theorist if you get your medical advice from a YouTuber named Deep State Steve and not those know-it-alls with the letters after their names. You might be a conspiracy theorist if your bleach bottle keeps leaking because of all of those damn needle holes. You might be a conspiracy theorist if hydroxychloroquine hasn't cured your COVID, but you still use it as a mixture in your margaritas because it tastes great and why the hell not? You might be a conspiracy theorist if you believe Dr. Fauci is only pushing these stupid masks on us to promote his new line of designer personal protection equipment called Fauci Fresh. You might be a conspiracy theorist if you are sure, 100% sure, that Kevin, the cashier at Del Taco, is an alien hybrid. You might be a conspiracy theorist if you believe having sex with demons and witches not only causes endometriosis, it's also the reason for murder hornets. And finally, number 10, you might be a conspiracy theorist if you believe Joe Biden wants to defund the police because Sting hasn't made good music since 1987. I want to thank my brother Joe Lombardo for that little segment. Joe, bless you, you're a genius. I thought that was hilarious. All right, guys, getting back to the serious stuff. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is Common Ground. We're delighted to have all of you here tonight. I'm John Lombardo. Eric disappeared on me. I don't know what happened to him. I wanted to get into some of these other things, though. I'm going to show you. So we talked about the vast amount of misinformation that is available out there on the internet, happening out there on the internet. And my primary concern, my primary fear, my primary disenchantment with this is that we are the ones spreading it. Let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about, everybody. Let's go back to the screen share. And here's one. Okay. This is a story that I saw posted on. Now, I want you guys to know, oops, I'm trying not to. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to show that one. Real quick, I'm going to get rid of that one because it actually shows the person's name. I didn't mean to do that. That's a story about a young black male who allegedly broke into someone's house, chased people down the street, raped, killed, all these things, and is being let out of jail right now. I saw it on 3 different people's pages posting, why aren't the Black Lives Matter people attacking this? Guys, it's from 8 years ago, and that boy is in jail. It's just not true, okay? So let's get into my personal favorite. This one, saw it on 3 different pages of people trying to, discredit Obama. On this day in 2007, Obama awarded Jeff Epstein the Medal of Freedom on this bustatroll.org, one of those fake sites that I see a lot of this crap come from. Obama was not the president of the United States in 2007, first of all. Second of all, this is you can easily tell this is a Photoshop. It's actually a picture, I believe, of Joe Biden. But 3 different people sharing this stuff, okay? So what does this do? This this foments mistrust in someone who is the Obama, like it or not, he is the voice of a large segment of our political discourse, and this is a fake attack on him. Even if you don't like Obama, you should be against this kind of crap. It's not healthy. And then my personal favorite, here's a guy, and let me make sure I didn't get his name in there. Explain this one away, Sleepy Joe. Now look, this is Biden doing something crazy with his hands. I don't know what's going on there. It could be an accident. If you want to make the case to me that Joe Biden's a little creepy, I'm not going to argue with you. There's some evidence there that this might be true. However, this same person, 3 posts down, posted this. George Soros says Trump has almost destroyed the New World Order. And if you read close, this is from a debate post. It's not even a magazine. It's something somebody said in a debate. So this guy, in the same breath that he posts that picture of Joe Biden and calls him creepy, is promoting Trump and saying George Soros, with an unfounded thing about George Soros and Trump. George Soros, once again, if you want to make a legitimate claim that George Soros is a dangerous person who funds things to undermine our democracy, great. Make the point. I don't trust billionaires, but make it rationally from some good sources. And please, your hypocrisy sort of reduces your credibility, because we're not going to give Biden crap about being a creepy guy and then support Trump, are we? Where's your standard if you're going to do that? Because when it comes to being creepy, I think Trump's got Joe Biden beat when it comes to treating ladies in a creepy way. And I won't go into those details. I don't think we need to. So anyway, could that be a red flag? Yeah. Oh, goodness. They can be allowed to make judgments and express their beliefs based on anecdotal experience. Yeah. So Pete said he's not saying those doctors are right, but he is saying their thoughts should be allowed to be expressed in a social forum. Pete, maybe so. I don't fault those doctors for saying what they said. I fault the American public for making it go viral without vetting any of it. Because it didn't really stand up to any vetting, did it? That's the part that scares me and disturbs me. Should the leader of our country then go ahead and promote it without checking the claim? I don't know, Ben. I don't know. I go back to that Herman Cain thing. It's very concerning to me that this is no joke. What's going on here? People are dying of this disease. It is dangerous. Have we overreacted to it? Maybe. But I think if we have overreacted to this disease and we see all this terrible suffering of businesses and people that are entrepreneurial, and it's true, it's happening, is it because there's a global conspiracy to undermine us? Or is it because our government was not prepared for this? The global pandemic response the pandemic response team was disbanded, and we had an administration that lied about this for 2 months to cover their own ass. It's unforgivable. Unforgivable. That's not political. That's just truth. Beery said, I think many people can see the differences in those examples. We can see the Obama photo was photoshopped. It's the ones that are not obvious that is true. It spawns hate. That's right, Lewis. That's why you got to not participate, as I'm going to say in just a moment. Carol said, sometimes things are shared because they're so obviously outrageous, not because they were agreed with. That's true. Clara said, when does it become okay to believe everything and not do research? When in doubt, look into it. We are ultimately responsible. Thank you, Clara. You just made my point. We are responsible for the things we share. We are responsible. It's not the fault of the Russian bots posting the misinformation. It's our fault for sucking it up and spitting it out. You said, when in doubt, look into it, Clara. Always be in doubt. We should always be in doubt because there's 5.4 billion fake Facebook pages taken down in the last 8 months. Woo! This is a great show. Patricia said, I say we underreacted because 150,000 people are dead. She said more likely connected to the COVID response and more every day. Patricia, I have a question I want to ask you on behalf of my conservative friends who have a legitimate concern. What do you say? What do you say to the folks that say there's been a bunch of over-reporting of these things? There's been people who've misreported. We were just talking this week with a friend of mine and I about a clear case in Florida of a bunch of small labs reporting 100% infection rate of people they tested. Now, the lab admitted it was a mistake. I don't know what's going on there. The local government knows about it and is working to fix it. But what do you say to those people? And I'd like to have that. I'd like to hear your take on that. John Magnus said, "I'm in doubt now." Is that good? Yes, John. It is good to doubt everything you see on social media. Paul said, "God, eat dinner. Good to see you." Paul, I love you, man. It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Please come back. Boy. Okay, Carol said 30 fake claims on fundraising texts every day. How do we stop the parties from telling us all lies? We stop listening. We just stop. We stop consuming. That's what we do. This is capitalism. We vote with our minds and our checkbooks and our wallets. Barney said, if I'm not mistaken, no social media platform is publicly owned. Therefore, controlling, censoring content is not a breach of First Amendment. Pete, what would you say to that? Barney just said that. He said that it's not a First Amendment violation if they're censored because the social media platforms are public. They're not publicly owned. They're private. What do you think about that, Pete? Love to hear your take on that. All right, guys. Let me see if I've got anything else I wanted to cover tonight in my notes. It's been a great show. I think I got to just about everything I wanted to cover. So Lewis said, Barney, there are laws when it comes to censoring things on these social media platforms. They have agreements to abide by. One thing I will tell, I'll tell you guys a quick story and then we'll get out of here. I myself used to post, you guys might remember this. I used to post a lot of things I used to do a lot of social media posting, and it was very political and there were a lot of discussions that happened there. I stopped doing it because all I was doing was unsettling my own emotions and my own brain and participating in the madness. And so I stopped doing it. I highly suggest that the only reason you come to, and Marcia said, yes, you did. And part of that's because my dear friend Marcia told me I should. Pete, calling bullshit is not censoring. Let me just read Patricia's statement. She said, I say that I rely on data. I work in a hospital. Data is important for us to project needs. Are mistakes made? Perhaps sometimes. If they're discovered to be mistake, adjustments are made, but it would be much easier to ascertain good data if we were speaking as one voice in this pandemic. Patricia Lynn, if you were here, I would kiss you on the cheek, not a creepy Joe Biden kiss, because that is exactly it. If we had one voice that was clearly looking to take responsibility, and who just said, I take no responsibility? Unbelievable from a president. I take no responsibility. But a voice taking responsibility and looking to manage all of this for the best of everyone concerned. That's the thing. I want to do one more. I'm going to do another screen share because of what Patricia just said. This is important. This happened in my city this week. And before I go to this one, this was fairly viral. So I want to ask everybody, if you know who this person is, do not comment on this in the thread. Do not say who this was, okay? So this is a post, and I'll read it to you. You can read it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. I'm going to go to the first one. I'm sorry, guys. Wrong post. That was the second one. Let me go to this one first. This was sent to me by another person in another county, posted by somebody who lives in my county. She said, I'm in the hospital right now. I'm so upset. They checked him in. They gave him an IV because he's been throwing up due to an IBS flare and needed electrolytes and fluids. The next thing we knew, the nurse came in and said, you just tested positive for COVID. Here's your lab paperwork. I kid you not. He said, what are you talking about? You never tested me for COVID. How can you say I'm positive? She said, yes, you just had the nose swab test. He said, all you've done is give me an IV. Now, she said, this is insane what's happening, people. I've heard this was happening everywhere, but if I didn't just hear it with my own ears, I would not believe it. Now, here's what she does, and she's wrong here. And I love this person. She's a very sweet, decent person, okay? But she said the system is rigged. How can they be getting away with this? Now, this went kind of viral. It was all over the place at least around California. She took it down and later posted this. First off, I just wanted everyone to know I did not know my post was going to go viral. I was just posting as an upset mom. The hospital has since called, said there was a mix-up and a miscommunication, and they were sorry. I give grace and appreciate that they reached out. They also said they would fix his records and they were going to talk to all of their staff so this doesn't happen again. I understand people make mistakes and are not perfect, but during such crazy times, it's important that things are done with accuracy. That's true. I agree with her. To those that are insinuating that they don't believe me by asking to see my son's private medical records, I mean, come on. Now, this turns into this war and people calling her a liar, but all of this happened because of fear. She was frightened. She had a bit of an overreaction, and she's also heard all these stories out there. Guys, when my dad had leukemia, he was 83 years old. He got leukemia. They told him he was positive for HIV. It was a mistake. They made a mistake. What possible purpose could they have in telling a kid who didn't have a test that he got a test? Now, if he took the test and they came back and gave him a false positive, that I could understand. Maybe that's conspiratorial. But the problem is now another story's out there. Another story's gone viral that we can't trust our medical institutions. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. Let's see. What happened here? Pete said, did you see tech giants hearings? They come to Washington, get spanked, and they pay tens of millions of dollars to both parties and keep control of their biases. Yeah. Once again, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, we are... I really believe it, man. This is my conspiracy theory. These social media platforms are not our friends overall. Lewis said something earlier. They're great for seeing your friends, and they're great for doing stuff like Common Ground. But I think there's a lot of danger in these becoming our primary channel for information and communication and connection with one another. I think it's a very dangerous slope that we're standing on. So, guys, that's going to conclude this part of the show tonight. And I'm going to go to the way I see it. I really appreciate y'all being here. I wish Eric could have closed the night out with us. But let's get into this with something I do every week, and I call it the way I see it. In the excellent movie Proof, the late great actor Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a priest accused of the worst type of crime. In one particularly poignant scene, he gives a sermon wherein a woman guilty of spreading rumor about another parishioner is told by a priest to go home and gut a pillow, then stand on her roof and empty the feathers off of her rooftop. Once she's done this, the priest tells her that she has to go gather all the feathers and put them back in the pillow as part of her penance. I can't do it, she says. And the priest replies, that is gossip. What a powerful metaphor for what we are doing. Once we engage in sharing that which may be dishonest, we can never undo what we've done. It's out there. And this is what's happening in the world we live in, regardless of which world you live in, because we're now in different realities, different facts, different rules, different laws of science, different definitions. What do we do about it? Who knows? But someone out there is really smart. I can see clearly how people who said, let's destroy the United States, figured out that the best way to do that would not be with weapons, but with words and ideas. Why hurl yourself hopelessly against the greatest military might in history when you can simply take advantage of the largest glut of trust and intelligence in history? Our enemies waited and watched as our country fell prey to the disease of excess. As the richest nation in history, over decades, we began to act like those who've had far too much for far too long. Our culture devolved into one of self-serving, entitled, reality TV guzzling children. Our enemies sat patiently as corporate profiteers invaded our political structure, purchasing elections and putting in place puppets who protect their interests rather than representing us, creating the greatest wealth inequality on the planet, a surefire way to foment revolutionary sentiment in those who labor for the profit of the wealthy. This sowed further anger, fear, and mistrust of our government institutions into our collective consciousness. Our enemies were paying attention to that. Then along came social media. Bingo. Every angry person, every crazy person, every wounded person with a chip on their shoulder and an agenda to serve now had a platform, a small stage to stand on from which to scream their fears and grudges to the world. It was a perfect storm. massive mistrust in the government, laziness and entitlement in our habitual behaviors, and a virtual bullhorn in the hands of everyone with an agenda and a gripe. All you had to do was light the match. That match was misinformation. This is not my own private conspiracy theory. It's a theory supported by the data I shared with you earlier. Data released from social media sites and supported by every intelligence agency we have. But here's how bad it's gotten. Those intelligence agencies, we only trust them if they're investigating things that support our narrative. Once they step outside of that boundary, we're all too willing to accuse them of being corrupt and working for the enemy. We don't require evidence of that. It's enough that they've defied our preferred narrative. But if you want to defend these agencies, well, you're in trouble there too. See, they've lied a lot in the past. The CIA, the FBI, they're notorious for lying to us and engaging in covert operations, sometimes to protect our nation, but far more often to protect the interests of our military complex. You want to defend our politicians against misinformation? Good luck. For decades, they've been paid corporate shills, screwing all of us to bend or break the rules for those who fund their campaigns so they can line their pockets. What have we done in response? Some have given up. Some are out in the streets marching. Some are burning and breaking. Some have chosen to blindly give their allegiance to a man who was essentially sold to us on a reality TV show. It's mad, but it's true. In order to rout out the corruption and the dishonesty in our institutions, we chose a man who was a fabrication of Hollywood producers, a man who began lying to the American people the moment after his inauguration. Crowd-sized people. Once again, not an opinion based on politics. It's not something I prefer to believe. It is a fact. I've watched with my own eyes and ears and listened with my own ears as Trump has lied about how dangerous coronavirus was, lied about the availability of masks. I remember when he made claims that shocking evidence was coming from China having deliberately created the coronavirus. He said it on Fox News. Big news later this week coming. That was back in early May. Nothing yet. Now he's lying to us that somehow mail-in voting is corruptible. As a means to delay an election he knows he can't win. There's no data to support this. But he still has supporters because he represents their version of the way they think things ought to be. Truthfulness be damned. We're about to have another election, and it will almost certainly be influenced by foreign powers. But here's the great news. That can only happen if we let it. When I was in drug rehab, and oh yes, people, in my youth, I was addicted to hardcore drugs for several years. I'm talking heroin and crack. So once again, Trump supporters, I feel you. I know what it's like to be fully aware that something is harmful and even evil, yet be unable to quit. There was a counselor that I worked with back then who used to say, I don't know what will happen to you. I don't know how long you'll stay clean, but I can promise you one thing. If you don't take drugs today, you won't get high. If you don't take drugs today, you won't get high. Well, America, I can promise you one thing. If you don't swallow and regurgitate the bullshit that bots are sending out to try to divide us, they can't influence our thinking or our elections. So I'm encouraging all Americans, liberal, conservative, red, blue, green, whatever color you are, I'm encouraging you to employ the strategy of one of the most famous first ladies of all time, Nancy Reagan, and just say no. And unlike with drugs, which Nancy was referring to, it really is that simple. Just stop. How? Here are my suggestions. Number one, never get your news from Facebook. Ever. Period. End of story. It is a cesspool of rage, conspiracy, misinformation. And the idea that you or I or any normal person can jump in that steaming pit of toxic waste and come out clean and safe and with the right stuff is a delusion. Number two, don't share anything you see on Facebook, ever. Not even news articles from places you halfway trust like CNN or Fox News. Don't share it. If it interests you, read it. And then write something about it. Say, hey, I read this today. What do you guys think about it? Start a conversation. Have an intelligent discussion. Share your thoughts about it. That's not what's happening right now. All that's happening right now is we're allowing the alarm bells of our amygdalas to get rung by people who want to take us down. I have one final recommendation. May we all practice the Tao of social media. The Tao Te Ching is one of the oldest spiritual texts in existence. It is a bottomless well of clarity and profound beauty. And among the many things it attempts to inspire us to seek is the middle way. Imagine you want to walk from here to there. Yet with each step you're pulled to the left or the right by strong winds. Think how much energy you'd need to waste to get where you want to be. The Tao is the straight, simple middle path, but this requires we stay calm and present. Does your Facebook feed sound like the right place to accomplish that? Put it down. I promise you'll be happier. As I said earlier, I allow myself to be on Facebook 1 hour per week to do this show. The only other time I'm here is to prepare for this show. I never come here to have my emotions scrambled anymore. But I sure used to. Look, what if your worst conspiracy theories are true? What if George Soros and Bill Gates are aliens who want to implant chips in all of us? Let's say that's true. What are you going to do about that? Write an angry social media post? Why? To get the word out? Where? Into the abyss where it will either incite fear or angry rebuttal for a few hours and then be completely forgotten by tomorrow? Save yourself. If the worst is coming true, we need to stay clear and focused on how to help each other. There's no scenario where that won't make things better, regardless of which ideological world you live in. The other way, well, the odds are you're just getting the word out in service of the people you were so scared of in the first place. That's our show, everybody. We'll see you next week. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Share the show, like, follow, tell people about it. We want to grow the audience and we want to hear from more and more of you. That's the best way to make our world a better place, in our humble opinion. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We love you. You guys are beautiful. I don't think the show's over yet. Bye, guys. Love you. Have a good night.